Hey guys, welcome back to Fight Tonight channel. Gervonta Davis faces Frank Martin on June 22nd in Houston. Tank Davis says he will be facing Frank Martin in the summer on June 22nd at the Toyota Center in Houston. Tank will be defending his WBA regular lightweight crown against Martin. Martin is a step up from the cannon fodder that Gervonta had been feasting on during his career, but not a big one. Prepare for the pricey pay-per-view. This will likely on Amazon Prime pay-per-view, and it could be expensive. Martin isn't one of the fighters that fans would like to see Tank Davis fight, as there is at least 6 better options than the 29-year-old Martin, but he's a bump up in ability from the guys Gervonta has been facing. Some casual boxing fans believe Frank Martin is the second best fighter in the lightweight division behind Tank, but that's a big stretch. He's a good fighter, but more like the 6th or 7th best in the weight class. There are some guys that will dominate Martin, who has a lot of flaws in his game. Tank's team plays it safe again. That could be the reason why Gervonta's management chose him. If they thought he could win, they would shun him like they've done with Shakur Stevenson. Raymond Mortal and Cruz staging the fight in Houston is a good move by Tank Davis because from Baltimore. Martin comes from Detroit, but his trainer Derek James lives in Dallas. That's 3 hours from Houston, so it's not a big deal. Fans are excited about the Davis vs Martin fight, viewing it as one that should have fireworks. Martin had an off performance last July in his fight against Artem Harutyunyan. He won the fight by a 12-round unanimous decision, but had to press hard to rally to a victory. In Martin's 3 previous fights before that, he would shine at defending Michael Rivera, Romero Dune and Jackson Martinez. One reason Martin had problems with Harutyunyan is that he was better than the guys that he would fought in the past, and he didn't know how to deal with a fighter that had ability.
Bill Haney said it might be over for Tank Davis after Devin beats Ryan. Bill Haney says Devin will soon eclipse Tank Davis in popularity. On April 20th, the WBC junior welterweight Devin "The Dream" Haney will turn in his 32nd professional duel. In that contest, Haney will face his opponent, turned professional rival Ryan Garcia. The prize fight is billed to be one of the biggest and most watched boxing events of the year. In fact, Bill Haney, the Dream's father and the trainer, believes that this bout could catapult his son past WBA lightweight champion Tank Davis. Gervonta Davis might be over with after this fight after he dismantled Ryan Garcia. A healthy Ryan Garcia at 140 pounds and do some numbers. It might be over for the former face of boxing Tank Davis. While both were still housed in the 135-pound division, Haney and Tank Davis were never able to get a fight made. During their martial tenure in the weight class, there was no question that Tank Davis was the bigger commercial draw and notable attraction. As time has continued to march on, however, Haney has only gained in physical size, in-ring know-how, and his visibility to the fans. It is well known that the Dream's next adversary, Garcia, commands a staggering audience via his social media platforms. Therefore, they believe that, like the mortal headliners, if Haney collected Garcia's scalp, then he would effectively absorb his fans' viewership and overpopularity. Haney's duel with Ryan Garcia in many respects is a must-win situation for both. Garcia needs to win to validate the endless river of boasting and talk that he is done over the past several weeks. To date, Haney will stand as the most popular and dangerous opponent on Garcia's resume. A win would stand as the undeniable verification that I am who I say I am. For Haney, who will enter the fight as the favorite, he is placed in a must-win scenario. Given how wild and erratic Garcia has acted of late, there is a widespread belief that he will be easy pickings for the fight.
Thanks for watching guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.